Okay. Hi, everybody. Let's say hello. This is a little better turnout than I expected in the rain. A lot of times us old people don't want to go across the building to building in the rain, but that's okay. First, let me say thank you from all of us. When you came here last time, it was, a bit of a meeting for all sides, but we had great discussion and agreements were made. And even though a lot of people might not know all of this, agreements were kept. And one of those agreements was that you would keep in touch with me. And that happened all the way through this whole process. And I did communicate that to people often, but I mean, that was the really important thing, because I think where this whole system has a fault, it is with the communication. So if we were an example of how to improve that a little bit, please carry it forward. So that deals. You guys can ask questions and answers today, but hopefully when they give us a rundown of what they've done and what they will continue to do, we might not have too many questions left and we can just enjoy the cookies. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa from the PDA office, and I'll keep the microphone out here.
Great. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yeah, but now.
Yeah.
Just down when it comes. It's good. It's good.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Diane, for those words. That really is the most important thing for us to come back, was to come back, because we said that we would. When there were doubts about how it was going to go, you have to be accountable, right, for promises and representations. And the best way to do that is to say that you'll come back and be accountable. So the work that was done, and I did, again, like we said last time, I was not the person on site doing the work. That was Nicole and her colleagues, and Megan and her colleagues, and folks from WSDOT. And it was a truly epic multi-partner lift. So I guess I'm really sort of just here to introduce the people who did the actual work, but it essentially went like we expected it to. I think most of the people in the room probably were there at the original meeting, maybe not everybody. Essentially, we said we were going to make a by name list of everyone who was living at the site. There were people who were present at the site who were not living there, so they didn't need to have another place to live found, but the people who were living there, we're going to make a list of those individuals, figure out what was going on with each of them, and then make a match with a housing or non-congregate shelter resource that was workable for each person, to the very best of our ability. And then when that was done and the plan was implemented for each person, then the site would be closed to human habitation, basically. And that is both what happened, and that sounds really simple, and in fact is like the most difficult work that there is. So if you have questions about how it went, Megan and Nicole can talk about some of the challenges that they faced. I can say that while the people that were on our list are not living across the street now, the story is not over for them, right? They're still with us. We placed 26 people in our co-lead program, for example. So those folks are still with us, and we're providing ongoing case management, and they have a lot of challenges, and we will ultimately need a permanent housing strategy for each person, because where they're staying with us, that's not meant to be like a permanent place that people would live forever. So there's a ton of work still going on with each of these folks, but now in a place that is, has running water and has the ability of people to live in dignified conditions and with a lot of wraparound support. So that's pretty much what most of the people here were saying should have happened a long time ago. And that is the story with the group of people who were living on site. That is where kind of our story begins and ends. Again, it's not over for the people, but it's over for our role on the site. And the geography, the land itself is, you know, owned by the state and the city, and how they intend to to steward that going forward is beyond our team, and the state and the city folks are here to take any questions about that. But let me just first, in terms of the story of the people, turn this over to Nicole and Megan to summarize what they found and what they did and what some of the challenges were.
Good morning. So CoLead was able to screen and approve 27 folks. We brought in 26 of our 27 folks. That was not all in one day. That came over weeks of time. And actually there was an individual who we worked with that you guys were reaching out about, our gentleman in the wheelchair, who somebody actually donated a wheelchair for him because the one that he had was not in the best working condition. So we were able to get that scheduled. He actually came in early with him. He didn't come in the first time because this is a scary transition for a lot of our folks. And so, and also being one of the first people to come in, it didn't seem real that other people were coming in as well. So we did work with him over a long period of time to get him to come inside. He's actually doing great with case management. We're hoping to get a more in-depth story soon to highlight the work that we're doing with him and just transitioning from outside to inside. So he's doing amazing right now. As you guys seen, a lot of transition happened over there, bringing folks inside. So everything from finding individuals to we were actually herding cats. We were climbing on top of RVs to get cats one day. To being able to get folks' cars running and out of there so that they could keep their individual vehicles as well. And so it was a great lift, and we definitely appreciated you guys. I know Diane came out and saw us a couple of times, just coming to check in and see how things are going. It went very well. It was a pretty long strategy to get folks in, and it was a lot of terrain for us to cover. It was our largest terrain that we've ever covered because we were going up and down the ravine all the way to 509 every day to check on folks, to bring supplies to folks. There's actually a house built on the side of the cliff. So we brought him in individually as well. An amazing masterpiece of carpentry. So hopefully we can merge his skills back into the workforce as well.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm the row coordinator at Reach. Along with what Nicole said, what's that?
Ms. Rose.
Oh, sorry, right of way initiative. So all the folks living along the I-5 and I-90 corridor is where I work. So along with what Nicole said, one of the first things that was a great success story was when we first got to site, there was a father and his 2-year-old there that were trying to get back home to Montana. So we were able to send them both back to their families. We were able to connect 10 people, which was including the toddler, to a housing resource while we were on site. One other success story that we had was there was a couple living on site. The female was pregnant. Their tent ended up catching on fire. So we spent quite a long time with them, ended up getting them in a motel, and they finally just recently got placed into a tiny home village. The female of that couple has since gotten a job and is enrolled in school, and her pregnancy is going really well. They were both sober at this point. And the male is undocumented, and he is working on his citizenship right now. So I just thought that was a great story. One example of a challenge was there are some folks from our by name list that didn't actually make it into a housing resource. One of those folks was an older gentleman. He just had left site. We couldn't find him. We couldn't locate him. Our housing navigator is still working with him and in contact with him, I think weekly. Another person ended up going to jail. So our housing navigator is also working with him, got him to a point where he could go to inpatient and then from there get into permanent supportive housing. I think some of you might have heard about our veteran. So we connected him. He didn't end up going in. We connected him to a VA case manager, and he's still working with that case manager. And we are also in contact with him at least once a week as well. So those are just a few of the stories that we had from the Reach side.
And I want to acknowledge the partnership that was playing out there every day. We had at a certain point, consistent with what you reported in terms of the occasional really spike in objective danger. We had some shooting into the encampment from people who are not living there, right? Shooting at the people in the encampment. And at that point, the Washington State Patrol deployed to keep our workers and the people in the encampment safe by essentially facing outward, and making sure that there wasn't another attack like that. The Sean Watkins and the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, they are the overarching partner who contract with our organization, Purpose Dignity Action Co-Lead, and with REACH to do this work. They were digging into resource challenges on a daily basis and finding creative strategies that allowed us to make good matches for almost everybody that we encountered out there. And that was like a very daily struggle. So thank you, Sean. And the approach that we're talking about that the King County Regional Homelessness Authority is leading, it requires a lot of problem solving effort person by person, so that you're not offering something that doesn't work for the person and then they bounce off the system and are out living a couple blocks away, but actually something lands for them and then we can keep working with them in a sustained way. Thank you very much for that partnership. And then WSDOT, the engineers of WSDOT, we're like the engineers of finding housing stabilization plans for people. They're the engineers of, what to do with the physical landscape. And this is, I really can't say enough about the day-to-day, the mutual respect and sort of choreography to make sure that everybody could do their work side by side on the site without stepping into one another's kind of field of vision or responsibility. So really a textbook example of doing something really complicated with multiple partners really well, and not just on schedule, but ahead of the possible schedule that we had sketched out. Can I hand it back to Diane for the rest of the program?
Well, not exactly the rest of the program, but yeah. No, but one thing I think was really good that, you guys should know that meetings like this are really important, no matter where the encampment is. If you have people living, you should be reaching out, finding and setting up meetings like this, because one thing over the years, not just this time, but over the years, is educating people on homelessness, how it happens, and why it happens. Because and Brian will tell you, I told him not to come here with any BS because it was a human issue. The rest of it is problems that we all have the ability to solve. But taking care of the human who is that homeless person, they had a life that was very different sometime. It may have been 10 years ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago, but they were a very different person. They didn't choose to be here. This is where they landed, and I think that that's important. And I think as far as our community goes, they've done a lot of searching inside themselves to accept that, and realize that when we finally all got together, it really was going to work. And so I want this group to know how much I appreciate you guys, as well as these guys, because we couldn't have done it without everybody. And as frustrating as it is, I hope we don't have to go through it again. There's no guarantee that we won't, but we certainly hope it does not happen to us again. But I'd like to talk to WSDOT about the condition of the land and what that looks like going forward. Introduce yourself, Brian.
Sure, thanks. Brian Nielsen, I'm with Washington DOT, the regional administrator. And so once all the folks were off the site, our maintenance crews and a contractor working for WSDOT go over the site, put up a fence, cleaned out the site, removed the garbage and debris, a lot of vegetation. Something we really focus on is clearing sight lines. It's not quite as comfortable for people to hunker down into the site. That took us about a month. I believe the last vehicle was finally moved off the site just last Friday. So I think we are done, at least temporarily, for the cleanup.
You took all of my fun away because they were over there chopping up those vehicles and I missed it.
Sorry, we'll find another one for you. So path forward, we kind of are into a monitoring phase now, where you all can help us in that too, right? We have, WSDOT, our partners with the city, others, engaged in the site, watching if people show up there. We don't want to allow them to get too comfortable and established there. So if you do see activity on the site, people hanging out there, doesn't look right to you, please do reach out to WSDOT. You can reach us either, you'll be emailing. That's one way. Let Diane know she has my email and my phone number. And I'm glad for that. So yeah, use that. So Diane or I think James, it's Northwest.
Yeah, NW Public Affairs, we'll get that address for you all to have access to.
NW Public Affairs, you can email us or reach out directly to our maintenance people or me through Diane. That's fine too. So going forward, monitoring for now, there was some conversation previously about activation of the site. I think that's going to be a process that's going to take some time. The lead for that is Ron Judd. Unfortunately, he was planning to be here, wanted to be here today, but he's been out for a while with a family challenge, lost a significant person in his life. So he's been dealing with that. That's about it. I think the key here, what we found at other sites is, in the near term, people tend to want to come back to the site, but if we can stay on the monitoring and continue to move them along, they get it, right? We're not going to be allowed to stay here and they find other places to go. Since it took us a month to clean this place up, we might be significantly past that. We weren't able to secure the entire site, a big complicated site with a steep hill. So there's not a fence all the way around it. That's a challenge with this site. But so far we're doing a good job of keeping eyes on it. And again, you can help us with that.
So if you see lights in there at night, that's what I need to know. Because they can't come in from this side, but they probably could come in from the other side. So, flashlights, any kind of lights, let us know so they can get in there and say, hey, you can't stay here. Hang on one second. And somebody else had their hand up back there. Francis, then you. Will we be able to talk with you, and possibly Ron's group and stuff about what the future of that property is and if there's something that can be done with it that makes it useful and not just a right-of-way patch of land?
That was the conversation that we had when we were here last time. So we should keep that dialogue. Yes.
Okay.
Francis, let me get you back here.
So be sure you put your hand up. Keep it up till I recognize you.
Is anybody going to patrol or check for cut fences? They're notorious for taking bolt cutters and cutting the fence, and I've been told that it's already been cut once. And the fence is not, the gate's not always closed at night when people leave.
I was in the state on Friday, but they let that hand down the hall weekend. Yeah, from the finish on Friday.
So yes, part of the monitoring, one of the key parts of the monitoring is just checking the condition of the fence. And we do have an ongoing contract for folks that own that fence. Anytime it's cut, they will come back out and make repairs. So yes, there's a panel down. I saw it out there this morning, and that is on our list to get repaired. Yeah, maybe there's a new one. But
Yeah, that was actually really bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely part of our routine though is to repair the fence.
Oh, okay. We came back from breakfast about 45 minutes ago and it was still down.
Oh, okay. But somebody told me that, so.
our crews are aware of it, and this is pretty common to have fence cut mostly on a lot of these campsites after this one, so that's where alerting us, may let us
But
know
it
now.
wasn't cut, it was from Friday's work when they.
Yeah, right. No,
Back up.
there's another part that's down, we drove by.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a day. Got it. Okay. Any other questions? We're gonna get through this meeting pretty fast, folks. Judy?
I noticed when I went by Camp Second Chance, there were a lot of cars that weren't there before that are parked out in front now. And I'm just wondering if people haven't moved that direction and used their parking lot to live in now.
We actually just went by there to check, and none of the vehicles that are there are vehicles that we recognize from being out front, and we keep pretty good catalog of the vehicles that we see every day. So there is one vehicle that was a match to this site, but she actually has a tiny home, and she was just coming over to the encampment to hang out with her friends that were here. So her vehicle is there, but it's because she actually lives there.
Thank you.
So we've also gotten some reports from camp. Oh, sorry. My name is Tom Van Bronckhorst. I'm with the Unified Care Team in the City of Seattle in the Parks Department. We did get reports from Camp Second Chance about some of the vehicles and some of the encampments that were growing outside there, outside the gates. We're aware of it and are working to do a satisfaction and get it into the process of resolution, getting it resolved. So, and their request was to have it removed as well.
Yeah, we talked about the land being cleared, but what is the actual, I mean, how healthy is that land right now?
So we do have an arborist coming out. I don't know if we have a date for that yet, but we are going to do a full assessment of the trees and the vegetation, just check on the health of the vegetation itself. It's not typical that we would do any actual soil testing as part of this process. Depending on this discussion about future activation, if it's appropriate, needed to be done for a future use, we could do it at that time, but it's not currently part of the plan.
We often, wonder about contamination and what the extent of that might be. Anyone else?
I was wondering, if the barriers are going to stay out there lining the property, is there any, plan to repaint over the graffiti of the cement blocks?
James is going to help me out.
Forgive me, I should have introduced myself initially. I'm James Pulling, Assistant Communications Manager for the Northwest region, which includes the city of Seattle. And I also handle a lot of the graffiti matters. We are aware of the graffiti that's been tagged there. It is in our plans to remove it if some of it has not already been removed. Unfortunately, with graffiti, we see frequent re-tagging throughout the city, the metro. I'm sure you see it everywhere as you go about the town. Sometimes as quick as overnight. So we'll continue to monitor it. Graffiti is a third-party charge for us. We don't have a budget for it. So if depending on how frequent the graffiti is, if it's hate speech, we will remove immediately and please notify us. But it won't necessarily be as quickly repaired as say the fence breach or something like that, just because of the third-party damage aspect of it.
Anyone else?
For the graffiti removal, do you have volunteer support?
We would be open to those discussions. We do have mainly in our litter pickup is where we usually see our volunteer support mostly. It's something we can definitely have an open discussion with the community about. There's nothing necessarily I can say that's, we have go to this site and register, but we definitely, especially with the relationship we have with the community, would be open to discussions about possibilities there. The biggest challenge to anything with discussion, and this is mainly just for safety point, is those concrete barriers are within inches of roads where drivers, I know the speed limit is supposed to be what, 25, 30, but people are going 40, 50 by there. Safety would be a huge consideration for any efforts out there without proper lane reduction and coordination. But yes, that's definitely a conversation we would like to have with the community, especially if there's interest, as it seems like there is.
I know there's a gentleman hiding in the back from SDOT's here, but from parking enforcement that we would like to hear from. I got a minute to talk to him when he first came in, and he identified himself, so that was the danger part.
I'm sure people have parking enforcement questions.
Well, I drove through today and there's no cars there. So we're on a good start. I know that there was cars along there a long time, and right now the temporary no parks seem to be effective, and we're maintaining the clear right away. So we will continue to do that.
Right. Our question has been for years, not just because of this last issue, but for years, why can't there be no parking posted on this street on both sides up and down? You know, we had trucks and trailers here for years. You know, many of them were refrigeration trucks, and they're outside, you know, our doors and windows. And it was real battle to get them out of here this last time, and real battle. And who do we actually deal with? We deal with parking enforcement, and if we do, who do we deal with at parking enforcement? That's the important.
Okay, so SDOT handles all the signage, but if you need to get a hold of parking enforcement for enforcement matters,
We'll get to SDOT.
I'm going to pass it to him in just a minute so he can answer that. But if you need to get to parking enforcement, the non-emergency line through CSCC Communications is the best way to get to parking enforcement, or the Find It, Fix It app through the city. We'll get those as well. Those are the two best ways to get a hold of us.
Well, look at it this way, we've notified you enough that this problem, this corridor is a problem, and it needs to be fixed. So whoever has to work together to fix it, so SDOT's here.
I thought I made a mistake by wearing my Dodgers cap, not my. So I guess the short of the long is that there is a process to request no parks. But something that you have to be cognizant of is the impact that it makes, because there's just not this facility that's on this road. You have others down the street. So by placing no parks, you might impact Second Chance, the JTF next door. And so there needs to be a thorough analysis about what that looks like. Now, I've heard there's some historical reference to how these pub busy or how these shoulders can be used. That's going to be important as you put in a request for permanent or temporary no parks signage. Now, if you're not familiar with that process, neither am I, but I am in the same department, right? So I can serve as a liaison to find you the right information,
That would be
to
great.
figure it out, to make sense of it. So don't know how helpful that was.
Keep asking around. Circle over there to get to the right party. So that's what we need to do, is get to the right party.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. Darius Foster, SDOT Unified Care Team. So, you got me on camera saying that. No. All right. I hope that was somewhat helpful.
Other questions? Go ahead.
Are the cement barriers gonna stay put, or is there a reason to have to stay there forever? The ones that the graffiti is on? Is it necessary for them to stay there?
Do you know the answer, James? I was actually gonna say, I'm not really sure who owns the barrier or what. I don't know if we have a plan.
So the concrete blocks, in the interim, yes, as we continue evaluation and discussions about long-term site activation, those will remain there mainly as a deterrence to the people parking vehicles there, moving back in. Those blocks, I admit they're very ugly, they're targets for graffiti, but those blocks were very effective for keeping new vehicles out as Nicole, Megan, and their teams worked on the site. So that is, we understand they're not very good to look at necessarily, but they have their effect as we continue to move forward with the long range plan.
I want to say that the Find It, Fix It app is a great tool, because I've used it on numerous occasions just for the trash being out here at our site and people just come and dump. And I have to say, you guys are on it. When I upload the pictures and send the report, within that week, that trash stuff is removed. So it's good to know that we can also do that for vehicles that are parked along there as well. I didn't know that part. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? You want to wrap up? Sure. Between you and sorry.
I do just want to acknowledge April and Jackie over here, who are part of the many weeks long effort on the site and who are here to, to see the community dialogue. And we're so glad to have been able to be on the other side of that arc for the site and for this community. You all have been a model, set of voices for effective action in response to really dire circumstances for all. So it was something that we looked forward to come back today. I really appreciate you welcoming us back. And thanks for your community leadership. Thank you, Diane.
Welcome. Thank you too. You guys, they're going to spend a little bit of time here, so they're not going to just jump out the door. So you can talk to them individually. And yeah, they don't all know that, but they do now. They'll be here for a few minutes, but you guys can enjoy a little bit of conversation with them. And if you've got other questions, you can ask them. Brian, you got any last words?
Just to echo what Lisa on that, I think, thank you for your engagement. Thank you, Diane, for reaching out to me. We've had some good conversations. I know you worked very closely with Chris over the months, and some great stories. Thank you for Reach and PDA for the wonderful work you do, or we wouldn't be able to have follow-up meetings like this.
Thanks. Yeah.